The following video may contain scenes some viewers find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Farley felt his eyes open awake. It was dark. He couldn't hear or see anything. He felt as if he was floating in a pool of water. "Hello?" he calls out. There is no response. He spends some time floating around, calling out until he sees someone in the distance. A dragonborn with orange scales. "Isaias?" Farley says to himself. He starts swimming over. "Isaias, is that you?" he shouts. He finally makes his way to the dragonborn. "Farley, where are the others?" Isaias asks. "Isaias, I'm so glad to see you." "The others? I haven't seen them. Are they here?" "Where is here?" Farley asks. "They should be. Before we all went unconscious, I used my telepathy to create this mind space for us all. We're still unconscious, but at least we can communicate with each other," Isaias answers. "Oh, that's good," Farley states. "Yeah, but they should be here. Unless something happened," Isaias says. "Wait, you don't think they could be?" Farley pauses and begins to hyperventilate. "Calm down, Farley. It's probably not that. I have to stay here to keep the mind space up. If I send you to each of them, could you check on them and make sure they're okay?" Isaias asks. "Oh, yes, I'm worried about them. Especially for Electria. He's just a kid. I didn't know that he's safe." "Okay, Farley. I'll send you to Electria first." "You ready?" Isaias asks. Farley takes in a deep breath. "I'm ready," he says. He feels as if a wave pushes him away from Isaias. His body spins around uncontrollably before stopping abruptly in front of a door. "Ah! What was... Isaias?" he calls out. There is no response. "Okay then. Guess I'm on my own. What's up with this door anyway?" A loud roar can be heard from the other side of the door. "What was... the Electria? Is he here then? He might need my help." Farley grabs the door handle. Another loud roar can be heard from behind the door. "Electria!" Farley shouts as he opens the door. A flash of light blinds him momentarily. When his vision comes back, the door is gone. He is standing in the middle of the forest. The loud roar from before has stopped, and the chirping of birds can be heard. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Farley shouts out. "Are you there? Before he can finish his sentence, he feels something slam into his chest and send him flying into a bush. "Ow! What the hell was..." A small hand covers his mouth. "Shh," someone whispers. He can feel someone's body pressed up against his back. Farley goes stiff. Another loud roar can be heard from above him. He looks up through the brush, and he can see a Rathalos fly overhead. It seems to be searching for something. It flies over, and once it's out of eyesight, the person removes their hand from Farley's mouth. He lets that aside before climbing out of the bush. "Thanks for that. But did you really have to tackle me?" Farley asks as he looks back into the bush. A small, young, white dragonborn climbs out of the bush. It appears to be Electria, but younger. Around the age of 7. "I would have let that thing eat you, but you would have led it to me," he says. "Oh, sorry." Farley recognizes this behavior as how Electria was when they had first met. Farley couldn't believe how much he had changed in these past months. Electria grabs a bag that he had thrown in the bush and begins to walk away, darting close to every bush in case he needs to jump in real quick. Farley starts following him. "Wait up," he says. Leave me alone, Vahalectria says. I just want to help, Farley says. He looks around and sees nothing but forest. How did you get out here? Are you all by yourself? I'm not alone, and we don't need you, Vahalectria answers. The two approach a big tree with a hollowed out trunk at the bottom. There is a small opening. Vahalectria passes through it. Farley looks at it for a moment before squeezing past. When he gets inside, he sees Captain Fuzzyboots. They're sitting up against a tree trunk. One of their legs appears to be broken and in a poorly made splint. Vahalectria turns his bag upside down and empties it out. Farley is in shock, as in the bag is a handful of unripened berries, some unknown herbs, and a few chunks of meat with old bite marks in it. Farley can tell that the meat has begun to rot. How long have they lived like this? Farley thinks to himself. Is there an adult out here with you? What happened to their leg? Farley asks. Vahalectria sorts all the open quote food end quote. It's just us, and that thing out there did this. Farley stands there in shock for a while. As Vahalectria sorts everything out, Farley looks at Captain Fuzzyboots' broken leg. He notices that the bone hasn't set right and needs to be properly set. He walks over and reaches for their leg. Vahalectria jumps and tries to stop them. Farley is holding off Vahalectria with one hand. Leave them alone, Vahalectria shouts. I'm just trying to help. The bone wasn't set right. Don't you hurt them. They're all I have left, Vahalectria shouts, with tears forming in his eyes. Ow, Captain says. But he's going to hurt you, Vahalectria replies. Ow, Captain answers. Vahalectria begins to calm down and take a step back from Farley. I promise I won't hurt them, Farley says. He turns to Captain Fuzzyboots. This will hurt a bit, but I want to make the pain go away afterwards. And you'll be able to walk again after that. Farley resets the bone, and Captain Fuzzyboots cries out in pain. Farley begins to cast cure wounds on their leg, and the pain goes away, as well as heals the break. Captain Fuzzyboots slowly gets up and begins to walk again. Vahalectria runs over to Captain Fuzzyboots and picks them up. They both hold each other and tears stream down their faces. Farley can't help but smile at the display. But all their happiness is short-lived. Farley smells smoke coming out from somewhere, and another loud roar from the Rathalos rings through everyone's ears. Farley quickly dashes to the opening of the tree and peeks out. The Rathalos is on the ground and is setting all the nearby brush on fire in an attempt to smoke them out. Farley looks back at Vahalectria and Captain Fuzzyboots. Is there another exit? He asks. Vahalectria and Captain Fuzzyboot nod their heads and head to the back of the tree. A small hole leads underground and out. The two jump in, and Farley follows after them. He has a hard time keeping up as he's a lot taller than the two. Wait up, he says. The small passage is dark, and Farley has to feel his way around. He finally sees light ahead and emerges into a bush with the other two. They both look scared and are staring in the same direction. Farley looks and he can see the Rathalos approaching the bush, sniffing along the ground. Farley looks at the two and back at the Rathalos. Don't worry, I'll distract it, he says. He flies out of the bush and flies to the side. He starts making a lot of noise and calls over to the Rathalos. Over here, he shouts while waving his arms. The Rathalos doesn't seem to respond, yet alone notice Farley. It continues to approach the bush. Hey, leave them alone, Farley shouts. He shoots another spell at the Rathalos, but it just seems to go through it, like it's not really there. What? Farley panics. The Rathalos moves closer to the bush, sniffing the ground. It gets closer and closer. Farley's heart drops into his chest. Then, he sees Vahalectra stick his hand out. It's still in the bush, just in front of him. The sound of a stick breaking can be heard from somewhere else. The Rathalos looks up from the ground and looks around. It takes off running in the direction the sound came from. Farley watches as Vahalectra and Captain Fuzzyboots run from their bush and off into the horizon. The woods around Farley begin to disappear. They turn to smoke as if evaporating. Farley looks around him, and he is back in the dark, empty mindscape. Vahalectra is standing a small distance away from him, staring off. He's back to his normal size and age. Vahalectra? Farley asks. I'm here, Vahalectra answers. What was that? Was that a dream? Farley asks. Not exactly. That was a memory from growing up in the monster-infested wilds, Vahalectra says while still staring off into the distance. What happened next? Farley asks. It took a few months for Captain's leg to heal. By that time, it was winter. Food was scarce before, but then we don't know how we survived that time. It wasn't until a few months ago when we finally found a way back to civilization. The guild picked us up and sent us here after some training, Vahalectra says. What happened to your parents? How did you two end up there? Farley asks. Vahalectra doesn't answer. He just starts to look down at the ground. Farley sees tears begin to form in Vahalectra's eyes. His heart sinks into his chest. What can I do to help you two? He asks. You want to help? Vahalectra asks. Yes, Farley answers. Vahalectra looks up at Farley. You can help us kill all the elder dragons, he responds. Farley's empathy turns into fear as he once again sees the pure hatred in Vahalectra's eyes. Why do you hate them so much? He pleads. Life would be better without them, Vahalectra states. A voice is heard in both their heads. You find him yet, Farley? The voice says. Isaias? Vahalectra asks. Oh, yes, Isaias, I found him. He was trapped in a dream. He's free now, Farley answers. That's great. I think I've located Faylene. Are you ready to go? Isaias asks. Yes, I'm ready, Farley says. I'm confused, Vahalectra states. Don't worry, Vahalectra. I'll bring you to me and explain the whole thing. All right, Farley. 3, 2, 1. After Isaias counts down, Farley sees Vahalectra get smaller and smaller, and feels himself getting tugged around. He eventually comes to another stop, in front of another door. Farley takes a deep breath and opens the door. Inside, he's at the base of a small hill. At the top is a tree with someone sitting underneath. The entire area is covered in a thick fog. Farley calls out to the person on the hill. Hello? Without turning around, the person replies in a familiar voice. Come and sit with me, Farley. Farley walks up the hill. At the top, he sees Faylene. Faylene, Azaeus and I have been looking for you, Farley says. Faylene doesn't look at Farley. They just keep looking down at her hands. I've been here the entire time, he says. What are you doing? Farley asks. Reminiscing, Faylene answers. Farley looks over her shoulder and sees what they are holding. It appears to be a photograph of a human. Who is that? Farley asks. An old friend of mine. When you get to be my age, you lose a lot of people around you, especially if they are mortal, Faylene answers. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss, Farley says. It's fine. It happened long before you were born. Faylene looks up from the photo. You have to learn how to move on. And how to take care of yourself. You need to start taking care of yourself, Farley. What do you mean? I'm fine, Farley lies. Farley, I can tell you're lying. Take a look of yourself. Faylene pulls a mirror out of her pocket and holds it up to Farley. Farley takes a look at himself. He has dark circles around his eyes, and his feathers have lost some color. On top of that, he looks skinnier than when he first arrived in the new world. Do I really look that bad? Farley responds as he takes the mirror. Yes, you've been looking worse every day. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself. I've seen how you take care of Electra and Captain. You can't be there for them if you can't take care of yourself, Faylene says. All right, I promise, Farley answers. By the way, Azaeus is looking for everyone. We're kind of in this mindscape thing he created, and before he can finish, Faylene cuts him off. I know. That's how I created this photo here. I don't quite own any photos of Castell. As I say that, the photo disappears in their hand. Oh, how did you know we were in a mindscape? Farley asks. Like I said, I've picked up a few things in my years. Faylene stands up. You ready to go? She says. The fog and the hill disappear. Yeah, I've still got to find Eldir. You can head on out to Azaeus. I'll join you when I find Eldir, Farley says. Oh, here's your mirror. He holds out the mirror. Keep it. It's not real anyway. I created it here, Faylene replies. Oh, okay, thanks. Farley puts the mirror in his pocket. Okay, Azaeus. I'm ready, Farley says. Once again, he sees himself drift away from Faylene. Eventually, Faylene disappears from Farley's vision. After she's gone, Farley turns around and is standing in front of another door. He can hear loud talking coming from behind the door, but he can't make out what is being said. He opens the door and walks in. He finds himself in the mouth of a rather large cave. Sunlight illuminates the opening, with torchlight illuminating the rest. A large amount of Dragonborn are gathered in the cave. They are all from different Elder Dragon ancestries, with no one ancestry being their majority. The talking dies down, and the Dragonborn begin to walk away from the center of the cave and face the entrance. Farley looks over, and he notices Eldir in chains. Two other Dragonborn stand beside him and walk him into the cavern. Eldir? Farley says. Eldir is escorted to the back of the cavern and in front of another Dragonborn, with Kushala Diora as its ancestor. Farley pushes his way through the crowd to get closer to the two. The Dragonborn begins to speak. Eldir Tolver, You are charged with the murder of Faerun. This is a massive amount of evidence proving you guilty. So much so, I've decided to forego a trial. What do you have to say for yourself? The Dragonborn asks in a loud, booming voice. It doesn't matter what I say. You've already stacked everything against me. So focused on your control for power, you wouldn't even frame your own son because he wouldn't submit to you. Eldir replies. The Dragonborn walks down to Eldir and begins to whisper. This is your last chance, son. I've tried being patient with you. Submit to me and I can make you powerful, he whispers. Your plan is crazy. I refuse to be powerful like you. Eldir replies. Very well. The Dragonborn goes back to its loud, booming voice. I sentence you to death. And seeing how you show no remorse for the murder, or any form of care for this trial, you shall be executed by having your scales removed one by one and injected with Chameleos poison. The entire cave roars with excitement. No! Farley shouts. He runs forward but is tackled by two other Dragonborn. Eldir! Two more Dragonborn walk up to Eldir carrying knives. They cut Eldir's shirt off and begin to carve out his scales from his body. Eldir sees in pain, but does everything he can to not scream. The entire time Farley tries his best to fight against the two Dragonborn, but is overwhelmed by their strength. This isn't real, Eldir! It's a dream! He shouts. Eldir can't hear him. If you're quiet during this, it means this isn't punishment enough. Make sure to dig the knives deeper into his flesh, the Dragonborn from before shouts. The two carving out the scales begin to follow as instructed, and dig the knives deeper into Eldir. Eldir gives in and screams out in pain. Wake up, Eldir! Farley shouts with tears streaming down his face. Once all of Eldir's scales have been removed, and he is covered in his own blood, another Dragonborn shows up with a syringe full of purple liquid in it. He approaches Eldir with the syringe. No, the Dragonborn from before says. He walks over and grabs the syringe. I'll do it, he says. Eldir! Farley shouts. Eldir looks up at his dad, panting. Just do it already, coward, he says. The Dragonborn injects the liquid into Eldir's neck, and immediately Eldir writhes around in pain. Farley has lost all will to shout, and just lays on the cave floor, sobbing. He feels the pressure from the two Dragonborn pinning him down disappear. He slowly looks around. The cave and all the Dragonborn are gone. Eldir stands there, with his scales intact. Eldir? Farley asks slowly. Yeah, I'm here. I'm fine, Eldir replies, a little shaken up. He is facing away from Farley. What was that nightmare? Farley asks. It was my execution. Or it was supposed to be if I didn't run away the night prior, Eldir answers. That's horrible. Your dad was going to kill you? Your own father? Farley asks, shocked. He's not a good man. I fled here to the New World to get away from him, Eldir answers. Still, he's your father. You're his flesh and blood. Why would he do that? Farley says. For power, control, he's obsessed with it. But it doesn't matter. He is back in the old world, and I am here. Speaking of here, what is this place? Eldir asks. Oh, some kind of mind space Isaiah's made. We're all still passed out, Farley answers. Oh, that's good. Eldir turns around and looks at Farley. At least what she... Oh my god, are you okay? He exclaims. What do you mean? Farley asks. Look at yourself. You're sickly. Is something wrong? How can I help? Elder replies. Farley looks confused for a minute, then takes out the mirror Faline gave him. He looks at his reflection. He appears to be covered in scars, and his ribs are visible through his skin. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. His feathers appear wildered, and the color was drained from them. What? What happened? Farley asks. Do you need me to get someone? Isaias? Should I get Isaias? Elder panics. Yeah. Isaias could help. This is his mindscape after all. Farley says. Okay. How do I find him? Elder asks. Oh, just call him. He will bring you to him. Farley answers. Okay. Isaias! It's me, Elder. I'm here. Elder says. Farley watches as Elder fades away from in front of him. He looks at his reflection in the mirror again. How is this happening? He looked much better when he was with Faline. Elder appears in front of Isaias. Faline and Vahilectria are with him. Welcome. Where's Farley? Wasn't he with you? Isaias asks. Farley needs help. Something strange is happening to him. Bring him here, Elder exclaims. Oh, shit, okay, let me just... Isaias pauses. What? What's taking so long? Elder asks. I can't feel him anymore, Isaias says in a quiet voice. What do you mean you can't feel him anymore? Faline asks. I don't know. I was keeping an eye on him and he disappeared. I can't see him, Isaias replies. Meanwhile, Farley has taken a turn for the worse. He is panting but can't get enough air in. His vision is getting blurry, and all his energy disappears. He collapses to the floor. As he begins to black out while he is unconscious, he hears a voice. There is darkness in you, Malfesto Cross. I plan to make it mine. Sleep for now. I'll wake you up when the preparations are ready, the voice says.